The devotee engaged by the direction of the spiritual master in the transcendental loving service of the Lord contemplates as follows. My dear Lord, you are the reservoir of pleasure. Since you are present, what is the use of the transient pleasure derived from society, friendship, and love? Persons unaware of the supreme reservoir of pleasure falsely engage in deriving pleasure from sense gratification. But this is transient and illusory. In this connection, Vidyapati, a great Vaishnava devotee and poet, says, my dear Lord, undoubtedly there is some pleasure in the midst of society, friendship, and love, although it is materially conceived. But such pleasure cannot satisfy my heart, which is like a desert. In a desert, there is no need of an ocean. There's a need of an ocean of water. But if only a drop of water is poured on the desert, what is the value of such water? Similarly, our material hearts are full of multi desires, which cannot be fulfilled by materialistic society, friendship, and love. When our hearts begin to derive pleasure from the supreme reservoir of pleasure, then we can be satisfied. That transcendental satisfaction is possible only in devotional service, in full Krishna consciousness. The personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, you are Satchidananda Vigraha, the ever blissful form of knowledge, and because the living entities are parts and parcels of your personality, their natural state of existence is to be fully conscious of you. In this material world, anyone who has developed such Krishna consciousness is no longer interested in the materialistic way of life. A Krishna conscious being becomes uninterested in family life, where there is some concession for sense enjoyment. In other words, he is no longer interested in sense gratification. The perfection of human life is based on knowledge and renunciation, but it is very difficult to attempt to reach the stage of knowledge and renunciation while in family life. Krishna conscious persons therefore take shelter of the association of devotees or sanctified places of pilgrimage. Such persons are aware of the relationship between the supersoul and the individual living entities, and they are never in the bodily concept of life. Because they always carry you in full consciousness within their hearts, they are so purified that any place they go becomes a holy place of pilgrimage, and the water which washes their feet is able to deliver many sinful persons loitering within this material world.
Hmm. Family life is not well advertised in this paragraph, in this passage. But even in family life, by Krishna consciousness, one can make progress. But those who advance become tired of family life. It's very difficult to attempt to reach the stage of knowledge and renunciation while in family life. Krishna conscious persons therefore take shelter of the association of devotees or sanctified places of pilgrimage. They clean their glasses now and then also. Okay. Anything so far? Okay, carry
on. You say after some time you become tired of family life. And by reading this at a young age, being unmarried, sometimes I'm already tired before it started. So, and wondering, for women, there's no other option than family life.
Generally true. Of course, even women can skip family life, but it's not expected. Switch.
Maharaj, in our generation, it was very difficult the girls have to get married. Whether
Very
you want,
difficult.
the girls had to get married.
Mm.
So in our generation, it was very difficult to say no.
I can't hear you. Just it's not loud enough, or you're not loud enough.
In our generation, it was very difficult for the girls to say no to get married because we were practically forced to get married, even though we rebelled. I rebelled anyway, but it didn't work. So, but with the family life, kept myself very detached. In the family life, I kept myself very detached. Even now, I feel that I am more detached than when people we get together, crowd, and they would say, "Oh, we like this," and we like. And I keep on thinking I'm the unusual one, you know. But generations have changed now, so the ladies can say no, but they have to be Krishna conscious and stay within the association of women.
They can say no, but then what happens after that? They may say no to family life, but then do they get involved in some romantic affair or this or that? That tendency is there. Along with rebelliousness against the authority of the parents comes a sort of freedom. We can do as we like. It's not that the new values that have come in are say no to family life and say no to sense gratification. It's say no to family life while saying yes to sense gratification. That's the prevailing outside standard anyway. It's not that they all want to become monks and nuns. They want to say no to family life because family life means commitment, obligations, responsibility. So no to family life, but yes to sense enjoyment. Especially the men, they like that arrangement. But you're right, and as time has passed, women, if they're determined, can say no. Or they can be in family life and take your example and be detached. Yes. No, there's no such question. It's really going in this direction.
When Prahlad Maharaj was asked by his atheistic father to describe something very good which he had learned, he replied to his father, "For a materialistic person who is always full of anxieties due to being engaged in temporary and relative truths, the best course is to give up the blind well of family life and go to the forest to take shelter of the Supreme Lord." Those who are actually pure devotees are celebrated as Mahatmas or great sages, personalities perfect in knowledge. They always think of the Supreme Lord and his lotus feet, and thus they automatically become liberated. Devotees who are always situated in that position become electrified by the inconceivable potencies of the Lord, and thus they themselves become the source of liberation for their followers and devotees. A Krishna conscious person is fully electrified spiritually, and therefore anyone who touches or takes shelter of such a pure devotee becomes similarly electrified with spiritual potencies. Such devotees are never puffed up with material opulences. Generally, the material opulences are good parentage, education, beauty, and riches. But although a devotee of the Lord may possess all four of these material opulences, he is never carried away by the pride of possessing such distinctions. Great devotees of the Lord travel all over the world from one place of pilgrimage to another, and on their way they meet many conditioned souls and deliver them by their by their association and distribution of transcendental knowledge. They generally reside in places like Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, Jagannath Puri, and Navadvip because only devotees assemble in such places. In this way, they give saintly association to one another and thus advance. So that every living entity can take advantage of the association of Krishna conscious persons, such great devotees open temples and ashrams where Krishna's devotees assemble. By such association, people can develop more and more in Krishna consciousness. Such advancement is not possible in ordinary household life, which is devoid of Krishna consciousness. The personified Vedas continued, Dear Lord, there are two classes of transcendentalists, the impersonalists and the personalists. The opinion of the impersonalists is that this material manifestation is false and that only the absolute truth is factual. The view of the personalists, however, is that the material world, although very temporary, is nevertheless not false but factual. Such transcendentalists have different arguments to establish the validity of their philosophies. Factually, the material world is simultaneously both truth and untruth. It is truth because everything is an expansion of the supreme absolute truth, and it is untruth because the existence of the material world is temporary. It is created and it is annihilated. Because of its different conditions of existence, the cosmic manifestation has no fixed position. Those who advocate acceptance of this material world as false are generally known by the maxim Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. They put forward the argument that everything in the material world is prepared from matter. For example, there are many things made of clay, such as earthen pots, dishes, and bowls. After their annihilation, these things may be transformed into many other material objects, but in all cases, their existence as clay continues. An earthen water jug, after being broken, may be transformed into a bowl or dish, but either as a dish, bowl, or water jug, the earth itself continues to exist. Therefore, the forms of a water jug, bowl, or dish are false, but their existence as earth is real. This is the impersonalist version. This cosmic manifestation is certainly produced from the absolute truth, but because its existence is temporary, it is false. The impersonalist understanding is that the absolute truth, which is always present, is the only truth. In the opinion of other transcendentalists, however, this material world, being produced of the absolute truth, is also truth. The impersonalists argue that this is fallacious because it is sometimes found that matter is produced from spirit soul and sometimes that spirit soul is produced from matter. Such philosophers push forward the argument that although cow dung is dead matter, sometimes it is found that scorpions come out of cow dung. Similarly, dead matter like nails and hair comes out of the living body. Therefore, things produced of a certain thing are not always of the same quality as that thing. On the strength of this argument, Mayavadi philosophers try to establish that although this cosmic manifestation is certainly an emanation from the absolute truth, the cosmic manifestation does not necessarily have truth in it. According to this view, the absolute truth, Brahman, should therefore be accepted as truth, whereas the cosmic manifestation, although a product of the absolute truth, cannot be taken as truth. The view of the Mayavadi philosophers, however, is stated in the Bhagavad Gita to be the view of the asuras or demons. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Asatyam apratistam te jagat ahur anishvaram aparaspara sambhutam kim anyat kama haitukam. The asuras' view of this cosmic manifestation is that the whole creation is false. The asuras think that the mere interaction of matter is the source of the creation and that there is no controller or God. But actually, this is not the fact. From the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that the 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, and sky, plus the subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are the 8 separated energies of the Supreme Lord. Beyond this inferior material energy is a spiritual energy, known as the living entities. The living entities are accepted as the superior energy of the Lord. The whole cosmic manifestation is a combination of the inferior and superior energies, and the source of the energies is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has many different types of energies. This is confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Shaktir Vivideva Shruyate. The transcendental energies of the Lord are variegated. And because such varieties of energies have emanated from the Supreme Lord, they cannot be false. The Lord is ever existing, and the energies are ever existing. Some of the energy is temporary, sometimes manifested and sometimes unmanifested, but this does not mean that it is false. The example may be given that when a person is angry, he does things which are different from his normal condition of life. But the fact that the mood of anger appears and disappears does not mean that the energy of anger is false. Therefore, the argument of the Mayavadi philosophers that this world is false is not accepted by the Vaishnava philosophers. The Lord Himself confirms that the view that there is no supreme cause of this material manifestation, that there is no God, and that everything is only the creation of the interaction of matter is a view of the Asuras.
Mhm. Arguments get a little complex or subtle here. The Hare Krishna. The Mayavadis say Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. The absolute truth is real, but the world is false. And the Vaishnavas say, no, it's not false, it's temporary. It's not false, it's temporary only. The Mayavadis take the position they do because according to them, there's only oneness and everything else is illusion. So the material world doesn't really exist, it's just illusory. They have their explanations. But Parasya Shakti Vividaiva Shruyate, the Lord has various energies, and the material world is a manifestation of the Lord's energies. So it may be temporary, but not false. Any questions or comments? Yes.
As the material world is temporary,
Hmm.
is it perfect or is it imperfect? Material world is temporary, but is it perfect or is it imperfect?
Perfect means what?
Perfect means there's no flaws. Like someone told me, the material nature is working perfectly. There's no flaws.
That's true. Material nature is working perfectly.
So then material world is perfect then.
From that point of view. Just like the prison is perfect. You know, if no one escapes, then we say the prison is perfect. Right?
But we as human beings, we have so many defects. We
As
are imperfect.
prisoners, we don't like the prison. Prison is perfect, but we criticize the prison this, the prison that, because as prisoners, we don't like it. But from the point of view of the government, the prison is as good as the college.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, cosmic manifestation is temporary but not false. And generally, like we see in Bhagavad Gita, naste vidyate bhavo na bhavo. So,
Nasato vidyate bhavo.
yes, Maharaj. So how should we deal with the temporary, basically? Because as devotees, we know that it is temporary, and I think Prabhupada is giving example of a person who is getting angry.
Yeah.
So, and we also say that basically the external situation is the reflection of our internal consciousness. So,
No, not entirely.
Okay.
It's not that the whole world is coming from my consciousness. I see it in a certain way because of my consciousness, but it's not that the world exists only because of me.
But it's a rectification system, like.
I think you need to hold that closer.
But like Prabhupada says in Bhagavatam that it's a rectification system.
Yes.
So basically, every situation which is being put in front of us in this cosmic manifestation. So every situation which Lord puts in front of us.
Yes.
So should we put our analyze it and try to understand our own trajectory, spiritual trajectory, and address our anartha?
I'm sorry, you just can't go that fast and have a Videshi understand what you're saying.
Sorry, Maharaj. Sorry.
That's as far as I can understand. That's the problem. I'm able to hear you, but if at that speed, other Indians will understand your English, but foreigners will not. So try again.
Sorry.
I suggest going slower and making sure that every word is clear.
Yes. So, as devotees, what should be our disposition of heart to the challenges which are being put by the material world?
And we should be determined to be engaged in devotional service. That's the simple answer. Maya offers this, offers that. So whatever the situation, anukul yasya sankalpa, whatever's most favorable for devotional service, that's what we should accept.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we see that we hear that spiritual world is dynamic and it is like we Ovanam chair that is also there and it keeps on ever changing. So what kind of change temporary nature is there which is different from the material temporary nature? How is it different?
No, everything there is permanent. If there's anger, it's permanently, everything lasts forever there. We can't understand that from our material point of view. If there's morning and there's evening, there must be time. But in the spiritual world, there can be morning and there can be evening, but there doesn't have to be time. Can you figure that out? Can I figure that out? No. But that's how it is. Nimeshar takyo vabrajati nahi atrapi samai. Not a moment of time, not half a moment of time passes in the spiritual world. And yet there's sequence, there's particular times, all for Krishna's enjoyment. But we won't understand it from where we sit. And then we're unhappy that we should be able to understand everything, but who are we? Even in this material world, kim karma kim karmeti kavayopyatra mohita, even the learned persons are bewildered about what action is, what inaction is. So then, what shall we say about the spiritual world? Who will understand it? Is that okay? Anything else?
The Mayavadi philosophers sometimes put forward the argument of the snake and the rope. In the dark of evening, the curled up rope is sometimes, due to ignorance, taken for a snake. But mistaking the rope for a snake does not mean that the rope or the snake is false, and therefore this example used by the Mayavadis to illustrate the falsity of the material world is not valid. When a thing is taken as fact but actually has no existence at all, it is called false. But if something is mistaken for something else that exists, that does not mean it is false.
Prabhupada gives the example, false, the eggs of a horse. The eggs of a horse are false because they don't exist at all. But the rope and snake, as Prabhupada explains, the rope exists, the snake exists, just we're mistaking one for the other, but they both exist. Neither is false. Okay.
The Vaishnava philosophers use a very appropriate example, comparing this material world to an earthen pot. When we see an earthen pot, it does not at once disappear and turn into something else. It may be temporary, but the earthen pot is taken into use for bringing water, and we continue to see it as an earthen pot. Therefore, although the earthen pot is temporary and different from the original earth, we cannot say that it is false. We should therefore conclude that the earthen pot and the entire earth are both truths because one is the product of the other. We understand from the Bhagavad Gita that after the dissolution of this cosmic manifestation, the material energy enters into the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is ever existing with his varied energies. Because the material creation is an emanation from him, we cannot say that this cosmic manifestation is a product of something void. Krishna is not void. Whenever we speak of Krishna, he is present with his form, qualities, name, entourage, and paraphernalia. Therefore, Krishna is not impersonal. The original cause of everything is neither void nor impersonal, but is the Supreme Person. Demons may say that this material creation is Anishvara, without a controller or God, but such arguments ultimately cannot stand.
Asatyam apratishtam te jagadahur anishram. In Bhagavad Gita, the demons say everything is false. There's no basis for anything. There's no God. But they're, as Prabhupada said, those arguments can't stand ultimately. Anything?
Maharaj, in this analogy of earthen pot and earth, it is given that because one is the product of other. So how does this prove that both are truths? Is it always true that if the source of something is truth, then the product is also truth?
That seems to be what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Something is a product of something else. Then the original thing exists and the product exists. If the product exists, how can you say that the source doesn't exist? And if the source exists, why should we say that the product is false?
So Maharaj, with this logic, then everything should be truth.
Everything is ultimately truth in that sense. That's what Prabhupada's arguing, that the world is not false, it's temporary.
So even the so-called false statements, they are also true.
Oh, yeah, you run into that. Yeah, as far as statements go, that may be. But as far as the things, the existence of things, they exist. That's a problem with statements. Nothing I say is true. Then either that's false and the statement is negated, or it's true and everything else, including that, is negated. That's a problem in philosophy and rhetoric. Everything I say is false. Well then, if that's true, if that's false, then what you said is true. And if it's true, then everything you say is false. So that's a paradox. But in terms of the existence of things, the earth is real, the pot is real. Not that one of them is real and the other is false.
The example given by the Mayavadi philosophers that inanimate matter like nails and hair comes from the living body is not a very sound argument. Nails and hair are undoubtedly inanimate, but they come not from the animate living being, but from the inanimate material body. Similarly, the argument that the scorpion comes from cow dung, meaning that a living entity comes from matter, is also unsound. The scorpion which comes out of the cow dung is certainly a living entity, but the living entity does not come out of the cow dung. Only the living entity's material body, or the body of the scorpion, comes out of the cow dung. The sparks of the living entities, as we understand from the Bhagavad Gita, are injected into material nature and then they come out. The body of the living entity in different forms is supplied by material nature, but the living entity himself is supplied by the Supreme Lord. The father and mother give the body necessary for the living entity under certain conditions. The living entity transmigrates from one body to another according to his different desires, which in the subtle form of intelligence, mind, and false ego accompany him from body to body. By superior arrangement, a living entity is put into the womb of a certain type of material body, and then he develops a similar body. Therefore, the spirit soul is not produced from matter. It takes on a particular type of body under superior arrangement. According to our present experience, this material world is a combination of matter and spirit. The spirit is moving the matter. The spirit soul, the living entity, and matter are different energies of the Supreme Lord. And since both the energies are products of the Supreme Eternal, or the Supreme Truth, they are factual, not false. Because the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme, he exists eternally. Therefore, for him there cannot be any question of birth or death. So-called birth and death occur because of the material body. The Vedic version, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, means that since both the energies have emanated from the Supreme Brahman, everything we experience is non-different from Brahman.
So everything is truth ultimately. Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Krishna is everything. Nothing is different from Krishna. In that sense, everything is truth, but it's not necessarily what we think it is. That's the defect. The rope is real, the snake is real, but the rope is not a snake. That doesn't mean the snake is false or the rope is false. Can I borrow your water there? I don't know what I did with mine. We know it's here, but where it is hasn't picked up and gone. Maybe it's turned into a snake. Okay, any questions so far? Prabhupada's arguing that their idea about scorpions coming from cow dung is bogus, because these scorpions don't originate from cow dung, they originate from other scorpions. So ultimately, everything comes from Supreme Brahma, Krishna. Okay. Yes.
There are many arguments about the existence of this material world, but the Vaishnava philosophical conclusion is the best. The example of the earthen pot is very suitable. The form of the earthen pot may be temporary, but it has a specific purpose. The purpose of the earthen pot is to carry water from one place to another. Similarly, this material body, although temporary, has a special use. The living entity is given a chance from the beginning of the creation to evolve different kinds of material bodies according to the reserved desires he has accumulated from time immemorial. The human form of body is a special chance in which the developed form of consciousness can be utilized.
Yeah, that's the purpose of human life. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, just for clarification, I wanted to ask. I know we talk about the material world is temporary, and from creation annihilation point of view, once the material world is created, and then towards the end, it's when it is annihilated, everything is going back to Mahavishnu, and then it's created again. So in that sense, could we say that there is a permanent nature of the material world, in a sense that the material world will always be there? Whether it is created, whether it is in the body of Mahavishnu, it doesn't actually disappear.
Yeah.
So can we say that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that doesn't mean that the things of this world are permanent. People are thinking, my bank account, my money, my body, my family, this is all real in the sense of it'll go on forever and ever. That's illusory. But the material energy will be there. Yeah.
Sometimes the Mayavadi philosophers push forward the argument that if this material world is truth, then why are householders advised to give up their connection with this material world and take sannyas? But the Vaishnava philosopher's view of sannyas is not that because the world is false, one must therefore give up material activities. The purpose of Vaishnava sannyas is to utilize things as they are intended to be utilized. Srila Rupa Goswami has given transcendentalists two formulas for dealing with this material world. When a Vaishnava renounces the materialistic way of life and takes to sannyas, it is not on the conception of the falsity of the material world, but to devote himself fully to engaging everything in the service of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami therefore gives this formula. One should be unattached to the material world because material attachment is meaningless. The entire material world, the entire cosmic manifestation, belongs to God, Krishna. Therefore, everything should be utilized for Krishna, and the devotee should remain unattached to material things. This is the purpose of Vaishnava sannyas. A materialist sticks to the world for sense gratification, but a Vaishnava sannyasi, although not accepting anything for his personal sense gratification, knows the art of utilizing everything for the service of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore criticized the Mayavadi sannyasis with his second formula. Because the Mayavadis do not know that everything has a utilization for the service of the Lord, they take the world to be false and falsely think they are liberated from the contamination of the material world. Since everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Lord, the expansions are as real as the Supreme Lord is.
Anasaktasya vishayan yataraha upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yukta vairagya uchate. Our Vaishnava philosophy is not that we renounce the world as false, but we use everything appropriately in Krishna's service. That's yukta vairagya. Everything should be properly used. And prapanchakataya budhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubi parityago paragyam phalgukatyate. Mayavadis want to give up everything because they want liberation so badly. They reject everything. Everything is false. Everything is false. This is dry renunciation. Hari sambandhi vastuna. Everything has a relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada gives the example. If I find a wallet in this room and I take it as mine, then I'm a thief. Hare Krishna. And if I just renounce it and leave it sitting there, then I'm a fool. So I should see that the wallet is used, money is used for the proprietor, that it goes to the right person. And that's the right conclusion. So the Vaishnavas don't say the world is false, we reject everything. First of all, it's not ours to begin with. So if I say I give up this Bank of America, what does it mean? It was never mine. So everything should be used for Krishna, and nothing should be used for sense gratification. That's real renunciation. Any question, comments? Okay.
That the cosmic world is only temporarily manifested does not mean that it is false or that the source of its manifestation is false. Since the source of its manifestation is truth, the manifestation is also truth, but one must know how to utilize it. The example of the earthen pot may be cited again. The earthen pot produced from the whole earth is temporary, but when used for a proper purpose, the earthen pot is not false. The Vaishnava philosophers know how to utilize the temporary construction of this material world, just as a sane man knows how to utilize the temporary construction of the earthen pot. When the earthen pot is
Yeah,
used,
if there's a pot, and we don't say, "Oh, this pot is false. I'm not going to use it." This glass is false. This plate is false. This spoon is false. This kitchery is false. Everything is false. How can you live? It may be temporary. It's not that the plate will last forever. The spoon will last forever. The kitchery will last forever. The bowl will last forever. But it has its proper utility. Put the kitchery in the bowl. You put the spoon in the kitchery, and so on. Proper utilization. If I say, "Oh, it's all false," that makes no sense. Yes.
when the earthen pot is used for a wrong purpose, that is false.
Yeah, if I use the pot for unmentionable things, that's different. For wine, that's a different thing. Wrong purpose. But for the right purpose, it should be used. When it's used for the wrong purpose, that's false. Okay.
Similarly, the human body or the material world, when used for sense gratification, is false. But if the human body and the material creation are used for the service of the Supreme Lord, their activities are never false. It is therefore confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that even slightly using the body and the material world for the service of the Lord can deliver a person from the gravest danger. When properly utilized, neither the superior nor inferior energies emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead are false. As far as fruitive activities are concerned, they are mainly based on the platform of sense gratification. Therefore, an advanced Krishna conscious person does not take to them. The result of fruitive activities can elevate one to the higher planetary system. But as it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, foolish persons, after exhausting the results of their pious activities in the heavenly kingdom, come back again to this lower planetary system and then again try to go to the higher planetary system. Their only profit is to take the trouble of going and coming back, just as at present many material scientists are spoiling their time by trying to go to the moon planet and again coming back.
Wasting time. Gatagatam kama kama labhante. Going up to the heavenly planets, then coming back down and going back up, and what's the use? What problem does it solve? What good does it do us? Similarly, the scientists, they probably they spend millions and billions of dollars, and they go up to the moon and then they come back. So what was the gain? Yes.
Those who are engaged in fruitive activities are described by the Vedas personified as Andha Parampara, or blind followers of the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Although such ceremonies are certainly mentioned in the Vedas, they are not meant for the intelligent class of men. Men who are too much attached to material enjoyment are captivated by the prospect of being elevated to the higher planetary system, and so they take to such ritualistic activities. But persons who are intelligent, who have taken shelter of a bona fide spiritual master to see things as they are, do not take to fruitive activities, but engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Persons who are not devotees take to the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies for materialistic reasons, and then they are bewildered. A vivid example may be given. An intelligent person possessing $1 million in currency notes does not hold the money without using it, even though he knows perfectly well that the currency notes in themselves are nothing but paper. When one has $1 million in currency notes, he is actually holding onto a huge bunch of papers. But if he utilizes it for a purpose, then he benefits. Similarly, although this material world may be false, just like the paper, it has its proper beneficial utilization. Because the currency notes, although paper, are issued by the government, they have full value. Similarly, this material world may be false or temporary, but because it is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, it has its full value. The Vaishnava philosophers acknowledge the full value of this material world and know how to utilize it properly, whereas the Mayavadi philosophers fail to do so, just as those who mistake a currency note for ordinary paper discard it and cannot utilize the money.
Practical. This money is false. No. It may be temporary, but it has value. This body may be temporary, but it has value. Everything should be used for Krishna's service, not that everything's false, everything's false.
Srila Rupa Goswami therefore declares that if one rejects this material world as false, not considering the importance of this material world as a means to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such renunciation has very little value. A person who knows the intrinsic value of this material world for the service of the Lord, who is not attached to the material world, and who renounces the material world by not accepting it for sense gratification, is situated in real renunciation. This material world is an expansion of the material energy of the Lord. Therefore, it is real. It is not false, as sometimes concluded from the example of the snake and the rope.
But we shouldn't think, well, nothing is false, so let me enjoy everything. That's false. Money in the bank is real, but that doesn't mean that I can steal all the money, claim all the money is mine. Whatever comes to me, I can use. Tena tuk tena bunjita. But I shouldn't take more, and I should understand to whom everything belongs. Ishavashamidam sarvam. And then it's not false. But if I say, no, nothing is false, everything is real, let me enjoy everything. Or the other way, everything is a dream, but let me enjoy. And he's misunderstanding. Something else? Okay. Are these examples clear? Do we understand the principle that Prabhupada's giving? The difference between temporary and false. Temporary is temporary, but not false. It's real when it's used for its real purpose. And it's false when I use it falsely. Okay.
The personified Vedas continued. The cosmic manifestation, because of the flickering nature of its impermanent existence, appears to less intelligent men to be false. The Mayavadi philosophers take advantage of the flickering nature of this cosmic manifestation to try to prove their thesis that this world is false. According to the Vedic version, before the creation, this world had no existence, and after dissolution, the world will no longer be manifested. Voidists also take advantage of this Vedic version and conclude that the cause of this material world is void. Because the Vedic injunctions do not say that, but the Vedic injunctions do not say that it is void. The Vedic injunctions define the source of creation and dissolution as Yato va imani bhutani jayante, he from whom this cosmic manifestation has emanated, and in whom, after annihilation, everything will merge. The same is explained in the Vedanta Sutra and in the first verse of the first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam by the words Janmadi Asya Yata, he from whom all things emanate. All these Vedic injunctions indicate that the cosmic manifestation is due to the Supreme Absolute Personality of Godhead, and that when it is dissolved, it merges into Him. The same principle is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. The cosmic manifestation comes into existence and again dissolves, and after dissolution, it merges into the existence of the Supreme Lord. The statement definitely confirms that the particular energy known as Bahiranga Maya, or the external energy, although of flickering nature, is the energy of the Supreme Lord, and as such, it cannot be false. It simply appears false. The Mayavadi philosophers conclude that because the material nature has no existence in the beginning and is non existent after dissolution, it is false. But by the example of the earthen pots and dishes, the Vedic version is presented. Although the existence of the particular byproducts of the Absolute Truth is temporary, the energy of the Supreme Lord is permanent. The earthen pot or water jug may be broken or transformed into another shape, such as that of a dish or bowl, but the ingredient or the material basis, namely the earth, continues to be the same. The basic principle of the cosmic manifestation is always the same, Brahman, or the Absolute Truth. Therefore, the Mayavadi philosopher's theory that it is false is certainly only a mental concoction. That the cosmic manifestation is flickering and temporary does not mean that it is false. The definition of falsity is that which never had any existence, but which exists only in name. For instance, the eggs of a horse, or the horn of a rabbit, or the flower in the sky are phenomena which exist only in name. There are no horse's eggs, there is no rabbit's horn, and there are no flowers growing in the sky. There are many things which exist in name or imagination, but actually have no factual manifestation. Such things may be called false. But the Vaishnava cannot take this material world to be false simply because of its temporary nature, its manifesting and again dissolving. The personified Vedas continued by saying that the supersoul and the individual soul, or Paramatma and Jivatma, cannot be equal in any circumstance, although both of them sit within the same body, like two birds sitting in the same tree. As declared in the Vedas, these two birds, although sitting as friends, are not equal. One is simply a witness. This bird is the Paramatma, or supersoul, and the other bird is eating the fruit of the tree. That is the Jivatma. When there is cosmic manifestation, the Jivatma, or the individual soul, appears in the creation in different forms, according to his previous fruitive activities and due to his long forgetfulness of real existence. He identifies himself with a particular form awarded to him by the laws of material nature. After assuming material form, he is subjected to the three material modes of nature and acts accordingly to continue his existence in the material world. While he is enwrapped in such ignorance, his natural opulences become almost extinct. The opulences of the Supersoul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, however, are not diminished, although he appears within this material world. He maintains all opulences and perfections in full while keeping himself apart from all the tribulations of this material world. The conditioned soul becomes enwrapped in the material world, whereas the Supersoul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leaves it without being affected, just as the snake sheds his skin. The distinction between the Supersoul and the conditioned individual soul is that the Supersoul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, maintains his natural opulences, known as Sat Ashvarya, Asta Siddhi, and Astaguna.
Yes. Carry on.
Because of their poor fund of knowledge, the Mayavadi philosophers forget the fact that Krishna is always full with six opulences, 8 transcendental qualities, and 8 kinds of perfection. The 6 opulences are wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. No one is greater than or equal to Krishna in these 6 opulences. The first of Krishna's 8 transcendental qualities is that he is always untouched by the contamination of material existence. This is mentioned in the Ishopanishad, Apapa Vidam. Just as the sun is never polluted by any contamination, the Supreme Lord is never polluted by any sinful activity. Although Krishna's actions may sometimes seem impious, he is never polluted by such actions. The second transcendental quality is that Krishna never dies. In the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, he informs Arjuna that both he and Arjuna had many appearances in this material world, but that he alone remembers all such activities, past, present, and future. This means that he never dies. Forgetfulness is due to death. As we die, we change our bodies and forget. Krishna, however, is never forgetful. He can remember everything that has happened in the past. Otherwise, how could he remember that he first taught the yoga system of the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivashvan? Therefore, he never dies. Nor does he ever become an old man. Although Krishna was a great grandfather when he appeared on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he did not appear like an old man. Krishna cannot be polluted by any sinful activity. Krishna never dies. Krishna never becomes old. Krishna is never subject to lamentation. Krishna is never hungry, and he is never thirsty. Whatever he desires is perfectly lawful, and whatever he decides cannot be changed by anyone. These are the 8 transcendental qualities of Krishna. Besides that, Krishna is known as Yogeshvara. He has all the opulences of facilities of mystic powers, such as Anima Siddhi, the power to become smaller than the smallest. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that Krishna has entered even within the atom. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. Similarly, Krishna, as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, is within the gigantic universe, and he is lying in the causal ocean as Mahavishnu, in a body so gigantic that when he exhales, millions and trillions of universes emanate from his body. This is called Mahima Siddhi. Krishna also has the perfection of Lagima. He can become the lightest. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that it is because Krishna enters within this universe and within the atoms that all the planets are floating in the air. That is the explanation of weightlessness. Krishna also has the perfection of Prapti. He can get whatever he likes. Similarly, he has the facility of Ishita, controlling power. He is called the Supreme Controller, Parameshwar. In addition, Krishna can bring anyone under his influence. This is called Vashita.
Yes.
In this way,
Hold on a second. So Krishna has these powers. The material nature enters into Krishna, but everything is happening by his will. Maya jakshena prakriti suyate saturachara. Krishna never dies, he never becomes old, never subject to lamentation. He has all opulences, he has all mystic powers. Any questions, comments? Yes, Tulsi.
Hare Krishna. It is said that forgetfulness is due to death. But we see that even in this lifetime we are forgetting, like Srila Prabhupada is giving example.
Brain cells are dying.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Raj, it is said that I think Krishna mentions that Arjun forgets, but he remembers because he's forever. So where does the memory lie with regards to the soul?
Why does memory?
Memory, just the remembering of anything. So we change our bodies, and our soul moves on. So now, with regards to the memory, the memory we don't recollect anything of the past, of our past lives. But how is it possible that sometimes people recollect their previous lives in this life? I mean, they have recollection of it.
They're by exception.
Exceptions.
And generally, we forget. But sometimes we remember. Sometimes by karma or by special arrangement, someone remembers. Some special circumstance, someone remembers. Generally, the rule is we forget, but someone remembers. Just like Bharat Maharaj, he remembered. In my past life, I was a deer. Or even the deer, yes. So he was very careful. The Nalakuver Manigriva remembered, although they were born as trees, they remembered that we used to be demigods. And there are jati smaran cases where a child apparently remembers a previous life. So it's possible. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Kashmiri Pandit recited 100 verses, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited back to him one of the verses. Could you explain this verse? Good qualities and the faults of this verse. I spoke those verses like the wind. How did you remember? Well, some people can compose poetry. Some people have good memories. Who could remember? But sometimes someone can remember. Is that okay? Yes.
I think it's in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that is said that within the womb, the soul remembers still previous lives.
Sometimes.
So is the womb like a Maya-free zone? Or how
No. And not every soul remembers. Fortunate soul, it's said. The description is there in 3rd canto. Some fortunate soul remembers. Yeah, I've been messing up the sound today. The fortunate soul may remember. Then he thinks that it's so miserable here, let me be born. This is unbearable. And then he thinks, getting out will be worse. Maya will be there. As soon as I'm born, my parents will be there and they'll be, baby. I'll forget everything. So better let me stay here. I can remember you. A fortunate soul. But he has to be born. But it's not a Maya-free zone. Maya-free zone is where there's Harikirtan, Harikatha. When the mind is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, then it's a Maya-free zone. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So we just read that Krishna is never polluted.
Krishna is
never polluted.
Yes.
But during eclipses, we close the altar. Altar's closed.
Not because Krishna is polluted.
So then I don't follow the logic then.
Well, the idea is that the things, food to be offered and so on, that's considered polluted. The evil effects of the eclipse are supposed to contaminate the atmosphere. So it's the things that we might offer to Krishna that are thought to be polluted, not that Krishna is polluted, so we have to put him in quarantine.
Thank you.
So, Maharaj, that means like the prasadam that is offered, it is also not polluted.
Yeah, that's finally there too, that anything offered to Krishna, of course, according to the customary usage, no one eats anything during the eclipse. I'm sure there's a logic to it all. But a person who has faith in Krishna Prasadam will take Krishna Prasadam anywhere, anytime, anywhere. Yeah. Anything else? Okay.
In this way, Krishna is endowed with all opulences, transcendental qualities, and mystic powers. No ordinary living being can compare to him. Therefore, the Mayavadi's theory that the supersoul and the individual soul are equal is only a misconception.
Yeah. The Mayavadis want to say that the individual soul and the Supreme Soul are one. But here's Krishna, all mystic powers, all opulences, all transcendental qualities. And I'm one. What kind of one? I'm infected by Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Mada, Moha, Matsarja, lust, anger, greed, illusion, so on, envy. So how am I claiming I'm one? Yes.
The conclusion is, therefore, that Krishna is worshipable and that all other living entities are simply his servants. This understanding is called self realization. Any other realization of oneself beyond this relationship of eternal servitorship to Krishna is impelled by Maya.
That's it. And Krishna is God, we're his servants. Anything else is Maya.
It is said that the last snare of Maya is her dictation to the living entity to try to become equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosopher claims to be equal to God, but he cannot reply to the question of why he has fallen into material entanglement. If he is the Supreme God, then how is it that he has been overtaken by impious activities and thereby subjected to the tribulations of the law of karma? When the Mayavadis are asked about this, they cannot properly answer.
Yeah. Our Dinabandhu Prabhu made this point this morning in the class. And under the influence of intoxicants, the hippies of the 1960s were thinking, wow, man, far out, we're all God. Why don't people get it, you know? But if we're God, why are we suffering? And this idea is childish.
The speculation that one is equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is another symptom of sinful life. One cannot take to Krishna consciousness unless one is completely freed from all sinful activities. The very fact that the Mayavadi claims to be one with the Supreme Lord means that he is not yet freed from the reactions of sinful activities.
Yesham tantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam vrita. Krishna says a person who's freed from all sinful activities gets freed from duality and engages in my service. So that turning it around, if one's not engaged in service, it must mean that he's not freed from sinful reactions. It's a wonderful argument. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, what about us? Like when we started Krishna consciousness, we were still doing all kind of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
How we came to the moment that we started seriously to practice Krishna consciousness?
I couldn't hear.
How we came to the moment that we started?
By chanting Hare Krishna, by the association of devotees. Mm-hmm. And bhajante mam dhridavrata, to be engaged seriously, that requires further purification. In the beginning, we can be a little attracted, we can take it up. But then to be serious, we have to be purified. And then the spiritual master says, no intoxicants, no gambling, no meeting, no illicit sex. chant 16 rounds. In the beginning, people also can take to chanting, dancing, take prasadam, and say, oh, the deity is so beautiful. That's very good. But they don't take to the process with determination. But when one is freed from sinful reactions, then he takes it seriously.
Can we say that this, like this level, Drita Vrata, means like Nishta platform, very steady to practice Krishna consciousness?
Shraddha platform. Beginning platform, where he's attracted.
Well, Drita Vrata, this verse is saying.
Ah, yeah, you can say. He has firm faith. There's no statement correlate. I get a lot of questions about correlation. If a person does this, is he in Nishta or is he in Bhajana Kriya or is he this or that? Can you do this at this stage, that stage? When the acharyas have said something, then we can say yes. But not that anything that happens, we say, oh, does this happen in Nishta or does this happen in Asakti or is this? Gets a little unnecessary also.
Hare Krishna. Some Mayavadis that study these scriptures that are specifically mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that are not to be studied by devotees, they claim that it's not that we are God, but that we can become the Ishvara, the controller within our own universe that we create in the deep samadhi that we go in by our yogic process. And then it's like microcosm, macrocosm. Doesn't matter what happens in the outside reality.
Well, then if you say that, I can create a universe. Still, you're not the supreme. You can only create your one little universe. So still, that makes you God, all right, but you're the small God. Even if we take it that you can create a universe, that makes you God. But you can't create all the universes. You can create one small universe. That you can't do either, but if you could, that wouldn't make you God. Wouldn't make you the supreme God.
But is it their desire that drives them to do this? To go into like this last snare of Maya? Because this is like...
Yeah, let me become one with God. Prabhupada said they're sinful. It's this desire, let me not serve God, let me be God.
So that's why they're prohibited, these scriptures. They're like, these scriptures, that's why they are prohibited, because they present this philosophy that can completely capture the mind.
Yeah, Mayavadi Bhasha, Srinile Sarvanasha Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If we take to an understanding of Mayavad philosophy, we can be bewildered. Therefore, no one should hear these Mayavad teachings. For some purpose, Chit Prabhupada told Rabindra Swarup he could study it for his doctoral dissertation. He could study Shankaracharya, but not that let me see what's there. Let me just hear a little. It's dangerous. Okay.
Maharaj, this becoming one with Lord and becoming like God, are they both Mayavadi thing? In which section? Like
becoming
one with God, like merging into the body of Lord and becoming like God. So Mayavadis are
more or less the same thing. I'll become like God, I'll become God, I'll merge into God. Prabhupada would just dismiss them all as Mayavadi. Now we can get technical about what's a Mayavadi and what's something else, but they're all in the same category of rogues. They're all rogues because they don't want to serve. Jiver Sharupai Krishna Nityadas, Ekala Ishra Krishna Sabrit. Everyone else is servant, but they don't want to accept that they're servant. So some want to merge with God, some want to be God, some want to deny that there's God, someone says everything's void. As long as we don't have to serve. That's the underlying motive, as long as we don't have to serve God. Therefore, this Maya means, of course, material world. I am God, let me enjoy. Then when the enjoyment becomes stale or sour, then everything is false. Nothing is real. Let me become God. Let me merge into oneness, this, that. But anything to avoid serving, because their hearts are contaminated by that notion, or by that unwillingness, that stubborn resistance to servitude. We've been starting kirtan late and therefore ending late. So why don't we stop here and have kirtan? Good?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama,